The peaceful morning I was enjoying was abruptly shattered by a call from the hospital, revealing that my sister Eliza was in critical condition due to kidney failure and needed an urgent transplant. Without hesitation, I volunteered to be tested for compatibility. My mind flooded with memories of our childhood. When the doctor confirmed I was a match, a wave of relief and dread washed over me. But what ultimately made me refuse to donate was a shocking secret of hers that I could never have anticipated. Eliza's diagnosis hit me like a ton of bricks. Kidney failure. I couldn't process it. The doctors said she needed a transplant to survive. Without a second thought, I volunteered to be tested. After all, she's my sister. I had to try. As I waited for the results, memories of our childhood together, playing, fighting, laughing, flooded my mind, reminding me of everything I couldn't let go. As I sat in the waiting room, memories of our childhood swirled in my mind. Summers at the lake, snowball fights in the winter, and those petty squabbles only siblings can truly understand. I watched the clock, each tick dragging longer than the last. Finally, the nurse called my name, and my heart raced in my chest. I wasn't just waiting for test results. I was waiting for a verdict that would change everything. The doctor walked in, holding a stack of papers and wearing a somber expression. "You're a match," he said, finally breaking the silence. Relief flooded through me, but it was quickly replaced by a deep sense of dread. This was real now, and there was no turning back. The weight of his words pressed down on me, making my knees feel weak. I nodded, forcing a smile to hide the fears swirling inside, but beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. Eliza lay in that hospital bed, fragile and frightened, her voice barely a whisper as she said, "Thank you." She couldn't meet my eyes, and there was something in her unease that struck me as off. I tried to reassure her, but the hesitation in her voice lingered, leaving a nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach. She was hiding something that ate at my trust. Yet, I pushed those thoughts aside, determined to focus on one thing. I could help her. Days blurred together as hospital visits became routine. Despite my constant reassurances, Eliza became more withdrawn. With each passing day, the gap between us seemed to grow wider. She avoided eye contact, and the laughter that once filled our conversations was replaced by an unsettling silence. It felt like she was hiding something, a secret she couldn't bring herself to share. Her increasing secrecy only deepened my worry, making me question what she was concealing. Our parents shared my growing concern, unable to understand why Eliza was acting so strangely. "She's just scared," Mom would say, though Dad seemed just as puzzled. "Maybe it's the stress," he suggested. We were all on edge, our worries feeding off one another. But despite their efforts to help, Mom and Dad had no more answers than I did. The mystery behind Eliza's behavior lingered, casting a shadow over all of us. Determined to uncover what was really going on, I began watching Eliza more closely. It wasn't just her silence that stood out. It was the way she interacted with others. She'd stiffen when a certain nurse entered the room, and her eyes would dart nervously whenever she received a particular phone call. Each small, suspicious behavior only fueled my growing curiosity. Something was off, and it was time to dig deeper. One evening, after a particularly tense visit, I decided to follow Eliza as she left the hospital. She seemed agitated, constantly glancing over her shoulder. My curiosity quickly shifted to concern as I trailed her down the street. After a few blocks, she entered a dark alley and met a man. They exchanged hurried words, too quiet for me to hear, but their body language spoke volumes. This was no casual meeting. Eliza's encounter with the man outside the hospital set off alarm bells in my mind. Their conversation was hushed, but the tension between them was palpable. Who was this guy? What was going on? I couldn't hear their words, but the urgency in their gestures was clear. This moment felt like a missing puzzle piece, one I needed to fit into the bigger picture. My search for the truth was far from over. After their conversation, the man hugged Eliza in a way that felt more like a transaction than a gesture of comfort. Eliza pulled away quickly, her eyes darting toward me. It was stiff, with awkward pats, as if he was fulfilling an obligation rather than offering genuine care. I made the decision to keep my distance and remain out of sight. Something wasn't right, and that awkward hug only fueled my growing suspicions. The next day, I confronted Eliza about the man. "Who's that guy you were meeting?" I asked, trying to sound casual, though my mind was racing. It didn't sit right with me. She glanced at me briefly and replied, "Just a friend." Her tone was dismissive, and she offered no further details. I pressed her, but she stuck to her story, avoiding my gaze. Friends don't act like that. Growing more suspicious, I decided to search Eliza's room for any clues while she was in the hospital. I quietly rummaged through drawers, peeked under the bed, and flipped through books on her shelf. My heart raced with each creak of the floorboards, and guilt gnawed at me for invading her privacy. But something deep down told me I had to uncover what she was hiding. Whatever it was, it had to be something big. I found several withdrawal slips, each showing large sums of cash taken from Eliza's account. Why was she taking out so much money? I carefully put the slips back, but made a mental note to dig deeper. The amounts were enough to raise suspicion, and the dates matched up with her strange behavior and secretive meetings. This wasn't just about her medical crisis, something far more sinister was going on. Frustrated and increasingly worried about Eliza's well-being, I confronted her again. "Eliza, why are you withdrawing so much money?" I asked bluntly. She looked taken aback, stumbling over her words. "It's nothing, really. Just some personal stuff." Her evasiveness only deepened my concerns. I pressed her for more details, but she dodged the questions, her answers as vague as ever. The more she avoided me, the stronger my sense of dread and frustration grew. What was she hiding from me? In desperation, I turned to my best friend, an IT specialist, hoping he could help me get to the bottom of things. "I need to know what's going on with Eliza," I told him. "Can you help me access her emails?" He nodded, sensing the urgency. "Give me her email address and some time," he replied. A surge of hope ran through me. Maybe, just maybe, he could uncover the truth behind what Eliza was hiding. We found a series of emails from loan sharks demanding payment and exposing Eliza's deep financial trouble. The subject lines alone were chilling. "Final notice. Payment due immediately. And we will find you." The messages were aggressive, relentless, and threatening. My heart sank as I read through them. Eliza wasn't just in debt. She was in real danger. As the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, a grim picture emerged, one I wasn't prepared for. Despite the feeling of betrayal, my concern for Eliza's safety only fueled my determination to help her. She might have lied and kept secrets, but she was still my sister. "I'm going to fix this," I told myself. This wasn't just about the kidney anymore. It was about saving Eliza from a mess that could destroy her life, maybe even end it. I couldn't stand by and do nothing. I decided to confront one of the loan sharks, arranging a meeting under the pretense of wanting to help Eliza. "I'm her brother," he agreed, setting a time and place. "Let's talk," I said over the phone, trying to sound confident despite the anxiety rising in my chest. My heart raced. but I knew this was the next step. If I was going to help Eliza, I had to understand just how deep the trouble ran. The loan shark demanded an astronomical amount of money, his tone cold and dismissive. "She owes us big time," he sneered, leaning back in his chair. "And if she doesn't pay soon, things will get unpleasant." His words sent a chill down my spine. The sum he mentioned was far beyond anything I could possibly manage. My mind raced, scrambling for a way out, a solution, anything that could save Eliza from the grip of these dangerous people. His threatening demeanor only strengthened my resolve to uncover the full extent of Eliza's predicament. "I'll find a way," I muttered to myself as I left the meeting. I had to dig deeper. There was no other choice. The guy was dangerous, no question. But Eliza's troubles were far worse than I had imagined. I needed to unravel the mess my sister was tangled in. The more I understood, the better equipped I'd be to help her escape it. I knew the loan shark wasn't going to back off easily, so I had to think fast. "The money's coming," I told him over the phone, forcing my voice to stay steady. He agreed to a short delay. "Just give me some more time." He grunted in response, clearly skeptical, but it worked. It wasn't much, but it gave me a window to act. Every day now felt crucial. Time was running out. For days, I tracked Eliza's movements, desperately trying to piece together her life outside the hospital. At night, I scoured through her digital footprints, emails, social media profiles, and online transactions. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became. Eliza was leading a double life. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Every waking moment was consumed with connecting the dots. I was becoming obsessed, driven by the need to uncover the truth, no matter what it took. My search led me to a seedy part of town, a place no one with better options would ever willingly visit. Eliza had been spotted there multiple times, usually late at night. As I surveyed the area, a sense of dread gnawed at me. The dimly lit streets, broken street lights, and shady figures lurking around made it clear. This was no place for my sister. What was Eliza doing here? She was hiding something, and it was bigger, more dangerous than I had ever imagined. One evening, I followed Eliza as she made her way to that part of town again. She seemed more agitated than usual, glancing around nervously, as if someone might be watching her. I kept a safe distance behind, my heart pounding in my chest. Eliza entered a run-down building that screamed trouble from every angle. Cracked windows, graffiti-covered walls, and an eerie, heavy silence hanging in the air. I hesitated at the entrance, knowing whatever was inside could change everything. But I had to know. I couldn't back out now. I needed more information, so I decided to approach a local who seemed to know the area well. "Hey, you see the girl who just went in?" I asked, slipping him a few bills. He eyed the money, then me, before nodding. "Yeah, I see her around." "You looking for info?" he asked, tucking the cash into his pocket. I leaned in closer, lowering my voice. "Anything you can tell me?" I half whispered, my pulse racing with a mix of fear and anticipation. The local resident revealed that Eliza had gotten caught up in underground gambling, a dangerous game she couldn't afford to play. "She's losing big time," he said, shaking his head. "Owes a lot of people a lot of money." My stomach twisted with dread. This was worse than I had imagined. Eliza wasn't just in debt, she was drowning in it. The full extent of her recklessness began to sink in. I had no choice now. I needed to confront her, face to face, and demand the truth. With the truth weighing heavily on me, I finally confronted Eliza. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded, my voice tight with anger. "I know about the gambling." Her face went pale, her eyes widening in shock as she stammered, "How did you—" But she couldn't finish the sentence. "It doesn't matter how," I snapped, my frustration spilling over. "What matters is why." Her body trembled, and tears welled up in her eyes as I watched the sister I once knew break down before me. I had never seen her like this, vulnerable, scared. It was time for her to tell me everything. Through her tears, Eliza finally confessed to the gambling debts. "I thought I could win big," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It was all for Mom's medical costs. We didn't have enough to cover them." My heart tightened as I realized the depth of her desperation. She had been trying to help, but her approach was reckless and dangerously misguided. The debts weren't just numbers anymore. They carried life-threatening consequences, and we were quickly running out of time. I listened in stunned silence, trying to make sense of her intentions and her reckless choices. "Why didn't you come to me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Eliza had wanted to help with our mother's medical bills, but instead, she had spiraled into a dangerous and deceitful situation. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face, unable to answer. The weight of her actions was overwhelming, leaving me speechless and drained. With time running out and the doctors pressing for a decision, I visited Eliza one last time. Her room felt colder, the shadows in the corners seeming to mirror the heavy silence between us. "We need to talk," I said, settling beside her bed. She met my gaze with tired eyes, a hint of guilt flickering in her expression. "Are you going to do it?" she asked, her voice trembling. The question hung in the air, the tension thick and suffocating, every second stretching into what felt like an eternity. As I stood outside her room, reflecting on everything Eliza had revealed, I found myself torn between forgiveness and the decision to donate my kidney. Her intentions had been noble, trying to help our mother, but her actions were reckless and deceitful. "It's not just about the kidney," I thought, pacing back and forth. The memories of our childhood, once filled with warmth, now felt tainted, overshadowed by the weight of her secrets. Every moment of reflection felt like a battle, with the scales of forgiveness tipping precariously against the weight of her betrayals. Each passing moment felt like a heavy burden, the decision hanging over me like an unshakable weight. The steady ticking of the clock echoed in the silence, amplifying the pressure. What would Mom and Dad do? I wondered aloud, but the room offered no answers. Watching Eliza, frail and vulnerable in her bed, the gravity of my choice only deepened. The doctors' faces blurred with concern, their urgency palpable. This wasn't just a medical decision, it was personal, a test of loyalty, love, and forgiveness. Finally, as I sat by her bedside, Eliza revealed one last secret that completely shattered me. "There's something else you need to know," she whispered, her voice trembling with the effort to remain calm. My heart pounded as I leaned in, trying to prepare myself for whatever was coming. "What is it?" I asked, the weight of her words already pressing down on me. I'm not your biological sister," she confessed, tears welling in her eyes. The revelation hung in the air, and in that moment, my world turned upside down. It felt like the final blow, a truth that changed everything I thought I knew. Eliza's confession hit me like a freight train. She wasn't my biological sister. She had been adopted without anyone knowing. "Mom and Dad thought it would disrupt our family bond," she explained, her voice barely audible. I leaned back, struggling to process the shock. Everything I thought I knew about my life, our family, suddenly felt like it was built on a lie. "Why didn't they tell me?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of betrayal and confusion. The weight of her secret and the implications it carried was more than I could handle in that moment. Eliza's words hung in the air, heavy and disorienting. Our parents had kept the secret, believing it would protect the family and keep things simple. They wanted to protect us, she whispered, tears now streaming freely. Why didn't they trust me with the truth? The weight of her confession settled like a storm cloud in the room. I blurted out, my anger and confusion bubbling to the surface. Eliza reached for my hand, but I recoiled, too overwhelmed to pretend I wasn't shaken. In an instant, everything I thought I knew about our family had been upended. Shocked and torn by this new revelation, I felt a whirlwind of emotions crash over me. Part of me wanted to comfort Eliza, to understand this new truth together and find some kind of resolution. But another part of me was consumed by a deep sting of betrayal. How could they keep this from me? I muttered, pacing the room in disbelief. Every shared memory, every moment I had with Eliza, now felt tainted, overshadowed by the secret they had kept. The emotional turmoil was suffocating, and I wasn't sure how to move forward. Eliza's concealment of such a fundamental truth felt like the ultimate betrayal. "You should have told me," I said, my voice cracking with a mixture of hurt and frustration. She looked down, her eyes filled with regret. "I didn't know how," she replied, her voice barely audible. "Knowing this changes everything," I continued, feeling my anger surge once more. The trust between us, already fragile, shattered completely in that moment. The weight of this hidden truth felt heavier than any secret she had ever kept. How could she possibly expect me to help her now? As I grappled with this bombshell, the weight of betrayal crushed me. She's been lying my whole life, I thought, the realization washing over me in waves of anger and sorrow. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what this meant for our relationship, what it meant for everything we had shared. The doctor's persistent requests for a decision faded into the background as the emotional turmoil consumed me. Confusion and hurt tangled together, leaving me more lost than ever, unsure of how to move forward. My mind struggled to process the reality of our relationship, the gravity of her secret hanging over me like a storm. How can I trust anything anymore? I asked myself, desperately trying to hold on to clarity. Every memory we shared felt tainted, every moment now under scrutiny, as if everything had been a lie. I saw Eliza's tears, her regret, but my own pain drowned out any sympathy I might have felt. With this new truth weighing on me, my decision became even more tangled, the path forward harder to see. Despite the urgency of Eliza's condition, I found myself paralyzed by indecision. Her revelation had sent my emotions into a storm, and I struggled to process everything. My mind raced, torn between the desire to help and the weight of her life-altering secrets. Could I really donate my kidney to someone who had kept so much from me? The doctor's pleas echoed in my mind, but my resolve faltered with each passing second. How could I make such a monumental decision under these circumstances, when everything I thought I knew was now in question? I started to question everything about our family and the bond we had shared. Was our entire childhood a facade? Had the joyful memories we built been real? Or were they simply colored by the secrets they'd kept from me? What else had they hidden from me? With each new question, I sank deeper into a labyrinth of doubt. I wondered, the mix of anger and sorrow threatening to overwhelm me. Trust had always been the foundation of our relationship, but now it felt irreparably shattered, leaving me lost in a sea of uncertainty. The loan shark's threats and Eliza's gambling debts only added layers to the moral dilemma that already consumed me. It wasn't just about her health anymore. Her life had become a tangled web of deceit and danger. Each new piece of information weighed heavily on me, pushing me closer to the edge. The urgency of her medical condition stood in stark contrast to the chaos she had created with her reckless choices. My mind spun, torn between her desperate actions and the need to save her, struggling to reconcile her survival with the consequences of her decisions. My thoughts swung between anger, confusion, and a deep, unshakable sense of duty. Eliza was my sister, or at least she had been in every way that truly mattered until this shocking revelation. How could I abandon her now, after everything we'd been through? As much as I wanted to turn away and leave her to face the consequences of her actions, guilt gnawed at me relentlessly. But with every passing moment of reflection, it felt as though I was walking a tightrope, the ground below me distant and uncertain, the weight of my decision growing heavier with each step. I found myself questioning whether I could find it in my heart to help her, despite everything that had unfolded. The memories of our shared childhood, the pain of betrayal, and the crushing urgency of her condition all collided in my mind. Could I forgive her? The question echoed in my thoughts, each iteration growing more difficult to answer. My internal conflict raged, torn between my deep sense of responsibility and the weight of the deceit that had shattered the trust between us. Every answer felt out of reach, the path forward more uncertain with each passing moment. The doctor's urgency only intensified my internal turmoil. "We need an answer soon," they repeated, their concerned expressions adding weight to the already unbearable pressure. Every word felt like a push, nudging me toward a decision I wasn't prepared to make. The sterile white walls of the hospital seemed to close in on me, suffocating with their coldness. The stark reality of Eliza's condition loomed over us, its urgency a constant, relentless drumbeat in the background, drowning out my thoughts and amplifying my indecision. I couldn't help but replay our childhood in my mind, each moment that had once defined our bond. Summers by the lake, late-night talks, laughter, and tears. Those memories now felt distant and tinged with uncertainty. Had any of it been real? Each recollection was bittersweet, a stark reminder of a love that once felt unbreakable. Yet, here we were, standing at the edge of a rift that time and truth had cruelly carved between us, a divide I wasn't sure could ever be bridged. Could I find it in myself to forgive Eliza and save her life, despite everything I now knew? This question gnawed at me as I watched her pale face in the hospital bed. Both a stranger and my sister, tangled in one heartbreaking reality. The weight of the decision was overwhelming, torn between forgiveness and the years of deceit that had shattered my trust. With every passing second, the choice seemed more impossible, and my thoughts became a chaotic tangle of conflicting emotions. With each passing moment, the decision grew more daunting as family loyalty clashed with the sting of betrayal. What is the right thing to do? I asked myself over and over, hoping for an answer that never came. The cold, sterile environment of the hospital felt like a stark contrast to the emotional storm raging inside me. Time was slipping away, and with every beat of my heart, the weight of the decision became even more unbearable. Questions of family, loyalty, and forgiveness consumed my thoughts, tearing at the principles I had always held dear. What would Mom and Dad think? I wondered, as the very essence of family was being tested in ways I never imagined. Each moment pushed me to confront what it truly meant to be a brother, forcing me to wrestle with trust, redemption, and the possibility of forgiveness. My mind swirled with these overwhelming questions, leaving me lost in uncertainty. I weighed the consequences of both choices and how they would affect our family. Donating my kidney could save Eliza's life, potentially healing the rift between us. But the web of deceit and secrets made it hard to trust her again. Each option carried its own burdens of regret and guilt, and with time running out, I knew something had to give, soon. Would refusing be an act of self-preservation or a heartless rejection? The line between the two blurred as I questioned my motives. Am I protecting myself or condemning her? I wondered. Each possible outcome played out in my mind, each with its own consequences. Saying no felt like abandoning family, while saying yes felt like validating her reckless choices. The stakes were unbearably high. Each scenario felt laden with regret and guilt. If I refused, I'd be haunted by the thought, could I have saved her? But if I agreed, the sting of her betrayal would follow me. My mind felt like a battlefield, each thought a conflicting force. The emotional toll was draining, and the weight of indecision was suffocating. One thing was certain, avoiding a choice was no longer an option. Finally, I realized the decision had to be mine. What's right for me? I asked, as the weight of others' opinions and expectations faded into the background. It was just me. This was my life, my body, my choice. The pressure was overwhelming, but I knew I had to find clarity within myself. In that moment, the hospital noise, Eliza's pleading, and the doctor's urgency all disappeared. I was torn between the sting of betrayal and the opportunity to save a life. The memories of our once strong bond clashed with the recent revelations. The internal battle was agonizing. Do I follow my emotions, or do I seize the chance to help her? I had to weigh my own pain against Eliza's desperate situation. The struggle felt like a tug-of-war between heartache and responsibility. As I gazed at Eliza, frail and fragile, the clash between cherished memories and painful truths felt suffocating. The laughter and shared moments that once brought comfort now seemed tainted by the deceit I had uncovered. Her weakened form tugged at my heart, but the heavy weight of betrayal still hung in the air. The emotional turmoil was tangible, each memory and revelation competing for dominance, making my decision feel more agonizing with every breath I took. My mind replayed Eliza's final revelation, her confession that she wasn't my biological sister. The weight of that truth haunted me, unraveling everything I thought I knew about our relationship. How could our bond, built on years of shared memories, be founded on such a massive lie? Is she still my sister in every way that matters? I wondered, struggling to reconcile the love I once felt with the betrayal now revealed. This wasn't just a minor detail. It completely reshaped my understanding of our connection, leaving trust feeling like a distant, almost unreachable concept. Could our bond survive this devastating revelation? And what would our future look like if it did? The thought of rebuilding trust felt insurmountable, perhaps even impossible. Can we move past this and heal? I asked myself, each passing second weighing heavier as I pictured the road ahead, torn between trying to mend our relationship or letting it fall apart completely. The true challenge wasn't just the betrayal. It was whether the sibling bond we once shared could endure such an earth-shattering truth. The doctor's constant reminders of the ticking clock only deepened my turmoil. Time is of the essence, they stressed, their eyes brimming with urgency. This wasn't just a medical ultimatum. It was a stark reality of life and death. Their words reverberated in my mind, amplifying the pressure on an already impossible decision. As if the emotional weight wasn't overwhelming enough, now the relentless march of time loomed over me, forcing my hand toward a choice I wasn't ready to make. I knew that the choice I made next would define our relationship forever. There would be no turning back from this moment. The weight of it all pressed heavily on my shoulders. This decision will echo through our lives, I thought, understanding that every future interaction, every shared glance, would be shaped by what I chose now. I had to act, fully aware that whatever I decided would send ripples through the future of our family. With a heavy heart but unwavering resolve, I quietly told Eliza my decision, my voice soft yet resolute. Her gaze searched mine, desperate for any sign of doubt. "I can't do it," I said, my voice barely cracking. She flinched, as though the words had physically hit her. I didn't offer any further explanation. There was no need. The weight of my choice hung in the air, undeniable and suffocating, the silence between us thick with the gravity of the moment. Her eyes widened, a mixture of fear and fragile hope reflecting in them as she waited for my final word. It was a look that blended desperation with a faint, almost imperceptible belief that perhaps I might change my mind. She tried to speak, but no words escaped her lips. Her mouth opened and closed in a silent plea. The room seemed to close in on us, each passing second stretching unbearably, her hope crumbling as her dismay became evident in her expression. I hesitated, my heart pounding painfully in my chest, before repeating my decision. "I'm sorry, Eliza. I really can't." She slumped back against the pillows, her face falling into a mask of defeat. "I understand," she whispered, but the emptiness in her voice told me she truly didn't. My words had sealed the door on any hope she had been holding on to. The decision now hung between us like an irreversible verdict, with no chance of turning back. In that moment, the weight of her secret and our shared history collided. Childhood memories of laughter and quarrels clashed with the harsh truths that had come to light. Everything we had built together now seemed fragile, like paper-thin walls crumbling under the weight of her hidden past. The enormity of her secret hung between us, casting a long, suffocating shadow over our relationship. The past we once cherished now felt distant, almost foreign, as if the foundation of everything we knew had been shattered. The finality of my decision hung in the air, settling over us like a heavy blanket. Eliza's expression shifted from hope to resignation, a quiet transformation that marked the end of our conversation. The room seemed to grow colder, the sharp scent of antiseptic filling my nostrils. "I guess that's it then," she whispered, more to herself than to me. I nodded, the weight of the moment leaving me speechless, unable to find words that could capture the magnitude of what had just happened. With tearful eyes, we quietly accepted the uncertain path ahead, whatever it might hold. Eliza reached out, her hand trembling as she grasped mine, giving it a faint squeeze. "Thank you for everything," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I squeezed back, my own eyes burning with unshed tears. The moment was bittersweet, a delicate balance of pain and a fragile understanding between us. We both knew there would be no easy resolution, only the weight of the choices we had made and the uncertain road that lay ahead. The revelation of her adoption lingered in the air, an unspoken reminder of the rift between us. "I wish things were different," she murmured, her gaze drifting away. The weight of her words mirrored the tension that hung heavily in the room. This newfound truth had reshaped our shared history, leaving us with more questions than answers. We sat in silence, each of us adrift in our own thoughts, struggling to navigate the fragile landscape of our altered reality. Only time would reveal whether this truth would heal or haunt us both. The future stretched before us, uncertain and untouched, like a book with pages yet to be read. Would we find a way to mend the broken pieces of our relationship, or would the fracture only deepen as time passed? Each moment felt like a choice between confrontation and acceptance, leaving us suspended in a fragile truce. The weight of the situation called for patience, but patience was a luxury neither of us could afford. As I walked away, the hospital corridors seemed both narrow and endless, mirroring the turmoil inside me. The harsh fluorescent lights above offered no solace, casting cold shadows across the sterile linoleum floor. Each step grew heavier, the echo of my footsteps a constant reminder of the irreversible decision I had made. In that moment, the weight of it all was suffocating, and the world around me felt unreal, as if suspended between emotion and reason. It was over, for now, but the silence that followed spoke louder than any words could. And so, our story veered into uncharted territory, shaped by secrets, regrets, and an uncertain future. I left the hospital with a heart heavy yet resolute, knowing the path ahead was unclear. The bond that once defined us had been irreversibly changed, now burdened by lingering questions and half-answers. As the world outside the hospital moved forward without pause, I realized that this was only the beginning of a new, uncertain chapter for both of us, one that would unfold in ways we could not yet imagine.